Welcome everybody, and thanks for joining our webinar on STL 2030 Progress Initiative. If you're joining us again, last week we focused on the inclusive growth metrics tools, and today we're going to be talking about the capital projects map and the jobs plan initiative tracker. And as we mentioned, as folks come in, please sign your name and organization into the chat. I'm going to start with introductions. My name is Ruth Surgenian, and I'm the Director of Economic Research here at Greater St. Louis, Inc. And I served as a project lead on the metrics tool of the STL 2030 Progress website. Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining. My name is Jeffrey King. I'm Vice President of Strategy at Greater St. Louis, Inc., and I served as the project manager for the STL 2030 Progress project overall. Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a manager on the strategy team here, and I serve as the project lead for the capital projects map.
Great. So let me just do a little housekeeping, tell you how this session's going to run. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the entire STL 2030 Progress Initiative. And then Emily is going to spend the majority of our time together, maybe 30, 35 minutes, diving into examples of how to use the map and the tracker. She's going to be on the site, clicking through and showing you ways that you can get the most use out of the tools separately and together. We have time at the end for Q&A, but feel free to type your questions into the Q&A field as we proceed, and we'll have the discussion at the end. And just a heads up that this webinar is being recorded so we can use the content for future promotion and training. So with that, let's get started on just a little bit of background on this initiative. Greater St. Louis, Inc. was established in January 2021. And at that point, we were in the midst of leading a process to develop a strategic agenda around inclusive growth that culminated in the publishing of STL 2030 Jobs Plan. And that came out in May of 21. The Jobs Plan then and now is a roadmap for the region and directs how business and the civic community can come together to drive regional resurgence and position St. Louis as a national leader in inclusive growth. I'm not going to talk too much about the jobs plan now, but there's a link in the chat where you can go to the plan and read it. Inclusive growth is an organizing concept behind the plan, and I think it's worth just taking a moment to look at the definition. I mean, we're talking about broad-based growth, including residents, workers, entrepreneurs, companies, and organizations across our 15-county region, and doing work to allow everyone to reach their full potential and allow everyone to contribute to and benefit from economic success. And while this is a very thoughtful definition and talks about some wide-ranging engagement, the jobs plan didn't specify how to implement and how to monitor, and they didn't create a framework to do that kind of follow-up. And that's why we took on the 2030 Progress Initiative to fill in those details. So since the jobs plan has been released and we've been using it for over 2.5 years, we're not surprisingly getting questions about how are we doing? Are we moving? Are we getting there? So beginning earlier this year, this team and other members of the GSL team worked together to lead a collaborative regional effort to take stock of how the region is implementing the jobs plan and how we're progressing towards inclusive growth. In September, we released STL 2030 Progress, a digital toolkit. It's a website that will do just that. And we'll probably say this more than once in our session. I know I said it last time too. I want you to keep in mind that this is a first iteration, that we're going to be continually updating and evolving this site throughout the decade as a reference and orienting tool to understand what's happening in the region as we work to advance our inclusive growth agenda. Also, make really clear that dozens of public and private sector organizations contributed to this project. Some of those organizations are represented on the call right now, and this is a truly collaborative effort. Now, the progress, I'm going to talk about the toolkit overview. On the outset, we took a scan of similar regional websites, dashboards, and we decided to create 3 complementary tools. They work together to tell a story of inclusive growth. The metrics portion really it provides data and information that lets everyone know where the region has been, where we are right now, and kind of highlights the regional strengths and shortcomings. The next 2 pieces we're going to focus on today, the capital project map and the initiative tracker, are the other side. They're going to be telling the story of where the region is headed and what action and investments we're taking collectively to shape the St. Louis of tomorrow. In the efforts to engage in, update, maintain the tracker and the map, we see this also as a way of raising awareness about all the good things that are going on in the region, to spark more collaboration between our organizations and have a tool that allows us to tell that whole outside world vivid stories about the innovative approaches that we're taking. So briefly, when we're asked, are we making progress? The dashboard, the metrics dashboard, was designed to provide background and context and also set targets related to population and GDP growth, median income, and household ownership, so that we have a collective idea of where we're going. And this tool has about 70 interactive charts and graphs organized by different focus areas. The Capitals Project Map is a GIS map that visualizes physical developments and infrastructure around the region. It also includes economy-enabling assets and contextual data about socioeconomic conditions in the region. It's highly interactive and kind of groundbreaking. We have not, for the dashboard portion, we looked at other peer markets and found numbers of places that are maintaining metrics. But we didn't see, and we haven't found yet, another region that is combining so much information in this format, in this way. So very excited about that. And then the third piece is the tracker that catalogs and is a directory of initiatives and efforts around the region. There are 125 efforts across dozens of organizations, all working to advance key jobs plans initiatives. The jobs plan is laid out in 5 actionable strategies that you can see here, and there's 20 major initiatives across these 5 strategies. And you can use this tool to gain awareness of the breadth and the depth of activity underway in the region and across these initiatives. As I said before, this is also a great tool for collaboration. We encourage submissions and are continually updating and expanding this data as we move forward. So in conclusion, I'm going to pass this along to Emily, who's going to move over to the website and show us examples of how this is something that you can use. So on to you, Emily.
Thanks, Ruth. So I will pull up the website now, and I'm just going to run through 2 use cases for how you can use both tools together, and hopefully that will help provide an overview for how you might be able to use these tools in your work. So to start out, we will navigate to the map. This is kind of the landing page for the map, provides a little bit of overview as to our process and how the data is organized. And then you can just launch the map directly from there. I'll do a little bit of an overview of the layout of this app and then the different features that you can use before heading into the use case. So as you can see, to start out, there's this splash screen here that provides some of our initial takeaways from all this data being compiled together. Then we just have this terms of use because there's a lot of data here. So the default view that you're seeing right now is the development projects layer. Many of you on this call were involved in compiling this information. But here at the bottom right of this panel is the legend. So you can see that these dots are visualized by property type. By developments, we mainly are talking about traditional economic development projects, so place-based buildings. And we use the criteria of kind of major economy building transformational projects when we were working with the dozens of partners to collect this data. That criteria is intentionally loose because what is an economy building project varies widely across the 15-county region. So we really leaned on our local partners to help us with that. I should also mention that, as Ruth was saying, this whole effort was born out of the 2030 jobs plan. So we use that same time frame for both the map and the tracker as well. So this includes any major projects that were planned, under construction, or completed starting in January 2021 and going through the remainder of the decade. You might be noticing right now that the developments are a little bit more sparse in this side of Illinois. So the Macoupin County, Bond County, Clinton County. And so when we were meeting with our partners over there, they mentioned that this is because a lot of the land is prime agricultural land. So they actually don't want that land to be developed since it's of such great importance to our food supply and other things like that. So they suggested that we include an agriculture layer to provide some more context there. Since this agricultural land was in existence prior to this decade, we have that in the existing assets folder in this layers menu. Here is that agriculture layer. If you scroll down in the legend, you can see what each of these colors mean, but it's pretty evident that much of this area is prime farmland of statewide importance. So we thought that was important context to include there. Now I will just briefly give an overview of how we organized the different layers. As I mentioned, right now you're just looking at the developments layer, which includes all of the projects across our 15 counties, starting in January 2021. Below that, we have the infrastructure projects, so same time frame, 2021 through the remainder of the decade. Mainly here we have transportation projects, so roads and bridges, the Metrolink, greenways, the Freightway priority projects, and then we also have some water, sewer, energy, so the utility projects. We worked with Missouri American Water and MSD for water and sewer, and then for energy, we got total investments from some of our utility partners, but mainly these projects are from our economic development partners. Below that, we have the existing assets folder. So within transportation, we have a lot of the layers from the regional freightway. We also worked with our research team here to compile these layers here. So major employers, medical education, assets. I'll go into a little bit more detail during the use cases, but we really thought it was important to include assets that were in existence prior to this decade, because oftentimes these are things that catalyze economic development or are ways that you can sell the region or why a company or people should locate in St. Louis or in a certain area in our region. And then our final group is North Star metrics. So this is directly from our Metro growth metrics. So this tool over here, we have 4 North Star metrics, which are targets for this decade are organized around. So each of those layers you can visualize on the map. I will do that when we go through the examples, but these are just a sense of what you can look at. And then last thing to note, as you can see, these layers are all nested within these broader groups because we thought that would be easier to kind of digest and organize. But the key is to make sure that the top level group is also checked. Otherwise, you won't be able to see any of the layers within it. Okay, so that's the layers. Then just briefly, we used the Esri experience builder to create this app, which is the kind of everything you see around the map itself. At the bottom here, we have this dynamic dashboard. So it updates as you zoom in and out based on the extent of your screen. We're almost at 400 projects here, so we're hoping to get 5 more submissions in the near future. Next to that, we have the total investment number for development projects. Below this asterisk shows that not all projects are included in this number, just because we don't have that information for all projects, especially for ones that are only in the planning phase. But next to that, we also have the total investment in transportation projects. Below shows what layers are included in that number. But overall, these are pretty staggering numbers in the billions of dollars. Just again shows how much activity and investment is happening in the St. Louis region. On the side here, we have the profile for the overall region, just highlighting some major recent wins. We also have an infrastructure view of the map. So this is every infrastructure layer we have turned on at once. Obviously, there's a lot going on there, but that's sort of the point. We want to show that there's a lot of activity. We have a lot of infrastructure assets in the region. On the panel here, we also have the sort of selling points for each of our partners. If you were looking for kind of some narrative as to how you could describe what's going on here. We also have each of the counties broken down. So for each of the 15 counties, there's a specific view and a specific profile. Just click on St. Clair here. So we have links to the county and the economic development websites, as well as the contacts for economic development. Most of the time, this is whom we worked most closely with as we were compiling this data. And then we worked with our partners again to create this narrative as to major projects and assets in that county. So the last thing I'll say is just this question mark button here on the side. This, if you forget after this webinar, some of the different functionality and the different widgets, this will provide you some more information. But right now I'll dive into some examples. So one of the main things that we noticed off the bat when we first drafted this map is the clustering around the interstates. So you can see in St. Charles, Jefferson right along 55, St. Clair County, there's a lot of clustering right around there. Makes sense for us as a pretty car-dependent economy. But we'll zoom in here. Specifically, you can see that there is a lot of industrial development, which is that red color, right around this area. So let's see kind of what's going on there. Some of you might be able to tell that this is where Lambert Airport is located. So we have that as a layer on the map. Also some additional context. Here's the air cargo services. We have the existing Metrolink lines, which is a major asset we have here. You can directly get to the airport on the Metrolink. Here we have rail distribution locations as well as the rail network, which again just shows the connectivity throughout the region. It's also interesting to add in this layer for major metro employers. Each of these dots you can click on to get some more information. So right here we have Boeing. When there's sort of dots layered on top of each other, you can use these arrows at the top to toggle between the pop-ups for each of those. So next to that is Project Voyager by Boeing. You might have seen this recently in the headlines, but this is a proposed historic investment by Boeing, $1.3 billion to expand their capacity there. And then previously, a couple of years ago, they also had another expansion. So that's also noted on the map because it was within this decade. Lastly, you might see that there's a bunch of clustering right here and here. We also have this innovation districts and business and industrial parks layer. So you can see this one specifically. There's a lot of buildings within the Hazelwood Trade Port, which is a master planned district. Each of the buildings you can get a little bit more information. Some of them are in use, some of them are available. And then in terms of other projects that are happening, so there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into connecting the airport. Specifically, we have the Regional Freightway 2024 priority projects. The Regional Freightway is under bi-state development, and every year they convene many of our partners that we worked with as well, such as MODA, IDOT, East West Gateway, the airport, and they determine the priority projects for funding for the upcoming year. So those are all represented here on the map. Again, you can click on those to get more information. One of those projects for this year is the new terminal for Lambert Airport. Huge investment, really important for many different communities in St. Louis, but you can see that represented on the map. So overall, we think that this is a great example of why it's so useful to see both the development and infrastructure data on one map. Really helps you get a better sense of the context or a more comprehensive picture of what's going on here, especially with such a major project that's upcoming in this decade. So as I as we mentioned at the top of this, these tools are meant to be used together. So I will show that we actually have a metric for airport connectivity as well. This is the direct flight routes and airline operations for St. Louis compared to our peer MSAs. So St. Louis right here, you can see we're actually above our peer average, which is 82. And then we also have the total passengers for Lambert Airport. So you can see we're steadily on the rise since that dip due to COVID. And then on the tracker, we also, under Next Generation Industries Hub, all of those Freightway priority projects that I mentioned are listed here as well. So if you wanted to get some more information about, for example, the new terminal project, here we have a brief description as well as kind of where we are in that process, the goals, next steps, the partners associated with that. And then under transit and digital access, we have some more of those projects that are on the map, such as these Metrolink projects. And then we also have the resuming of nonstop flights to Europe. So you might have seen last year was the first time that we had direct service from here to Europe. This is just a little bit more information about that. All of the numerous people that, or numerous organizations that collaborated to make that possible, information about costs and funding. So yeah, that's just an example of how you can kind of see across these three different tools, a single story about what's going on in the region. So now that we're on the tracker, I'll give a brief overview of this tool. This is the one that's most directly tied to the jobs plan. So it's organized exactly how the jobs plan is laid out as well. There are 5 actionable strategies in the jobs plan that are kind of the ways or the focus areas for the region as we are looking to grow inclusive economic growth here. This graphic you can click on and get sort of a summary of the initiatives and projects within that. So I think that is pretty cool. From either the bottom or the top, you can jump straight to the projects. And each one, like I just demoed, has more information. So for the next use case, we're going to start here with the GeoFutures strategic roadmap. You might have heard that St. Louis is working to become a geospatial hub. We have a lot of key investments that have been happening. And given our other industries here, such as agriculture, this is kind of a great opportunity for the region to capitalize on. So this, I believe, yes, in the chat, Jeff just shared the GeoFuture strategic roadmap, but these are many of the projects or programs that are happening in relation to that. Recently, the Taylor Geospatial Institute and the Geospatial Engine, as well as the historic investment made by NGA to locate its West headquarters in North St. Louis City. So those kinds of things are represented here. Specifically related to the NGA, under Restore the Core Neighborhood Transformation, we have Project Connect, which is the initiative led by SLDC to engage the 6 neighborhoods surrounding NGA's new headquarters. Here we also have the collaborators, goals, and next steps. So we thought this would be an interesting one to visualize on the map. So we'll jump back over here. This one I have already set up. and we are actually in the city specific view. So within the 15 counties, we're just clicked on City of St. Louis. Again, we have links to the website and the economic development entity. So in this case, that's SLDC, as well as a contact if you have questions about anything, any of the developments that are mapped here. Again, the highlighting of projects, and at the bottom we have links to other similar efforts or similar plans. So right now we have the developments layer turned on, as well as the neighborhood boundaries and the SLDC demonstration areas. I'll use this widget here, which is the search function. So if you, for example, hear of a project in the news, a development project, you can come and search to see where it is on the map. Right now I'll do a search for NGA. So it highlights that for you, provides the description here. You can also click on the project for more information, location, and description. And then the key is to just reset it here so that you can get the other projects back. But now that we know this is the NGA, we can have a little bit more context. So this purple polygon represents the Project Connect area. So those 6 neighborhoods that were mentioned in the initiatives tracker. You can see this blue layer below it is actually the neighborhoods layer. So click to the sides, show that this is Old North. This dotted line here is the proposed Metrolink expansion. So the north-south Metrolink right along Jefferson. The Jefferson alignment is also what it's referred to as. We have the total cost as well. And then this green dotted line is the Brookline Greenway. So this is just another way that the NGA will be connected to other areas of the city, provide easier access to that campus. Another interesting feature that we have is the Near Me feature. This is something that was recommended to us to add by our community and housing development partners. As they said, this would be really useful for grants where you have to report what economic development projects are happening within a certain radius of your proposed development. So just an example here, we can see what development is happening within a 1 mile radius of the NGA. So if you click on this here and just drop the pin on the NGA, it pulls up that there's 8 development projects within that radius. You can see what each of them are, and then it will provide the same information as the pop-up within this widget as well. And then again, just like the search feature, to get it back to normal, you can reset that. So the other thing I'd like to show, I'll just turn off the demonstration areas in the neighborhoods for now, but the North Star metrics provide some more context to these developments. As I mentioned before, the NGA intentionally invested in a historically underinvested area, which you can see through these layers on the map. For example, here we have median household income. Pull up the legend. So you can see that this area is kind of at the lowest end of the scale here. You can click on each of these. So this layer is broken up by zip code and get a little bit more information on median household income, population, which zip code you're looking at. Same goes for home ownership rate. You can see again, we're sort of at the lower end of this scale, and you can get more information by clicking on the different zip codes. The race and ethnicity layer is also pretty interesting. This one is a little bit easier to see once you zoom out. But yes, that area in North City is predominantly Black. And you can see that through this layer on the map here. So yeah, we hope that these two examples provided a little bit more context as to how you can use this map. We think it can be helpful for grant proposals to set up meetings, inform meetings, and just visualizing an area for potential development, especially for potentially clients that are not from the St. Louis region. And then we think that this tool also in and of itself promotes that St. Louis is using geospatial tools to inform decision making for planning, which again just emphasizes the proliferation of geospatial tools and the fact that St. Louis is becoming a geospatial hub. So lastly, I'll address kind of the big question, how is this kept up to date? Obviously, this is only as useful as it is accurate. So we have a couple different methods that you can use to submit project information. For the map specifically, on a rolling basis, we have this Tell Us More button, which is always available on the map, which leads you to the development project submission. So this is an Esri survey, which just helps us make sure we have all the information we need to directly get these projects on the map. But if you just click yes, that your project is within this decade, it leads you to all these other fields that we can fill out to directly get those projects on the map. For the initiatives tracker, we are primarily using this submission form, which is on the 2030 Progress website. So you can navigate to there from many different ways, but I'll just show from the initiatives page. Right here, you can click Join the Progress, and then you'll get to that form. If you want to talk about a project specifically, you can click this, or if you just want to submit general feedback or suggestions, we also welcome that here. And then the last way is just to email us directly. I think that Jeff will send our emails into the chat, but we really need you all to be a part of our users group for all three of these tools. We want to make these tools useful for you all as you're doing your work. So if you are using the map and you think of a layer or a type of data that you think would be really helpful to add, we would definitely love to talk about that. We'd love to get your suggestions. And we definitely want to keep iterating and improving on these tools. So I know that was a lot of information, but now I will pause for some questions.
Thanks, Emily. As folks are gathering their thoughts around any other questions, we did get two that were submitted, both on the data layers and sources. So Ryan submitted a question of how did you get the agricultural layer? So asking about the source behind the agricultural layer. So why don't we do that one first?
Yes. So the agricultural layer is just a layer from Esri. They create some of their own layers based off of data that they have. We went with them because agriculture is a little bit harder to visualize because just the way that the land is, oftentimes it's more of like an image layer. So it's just an Esri layer that we used from their sources.
Great. And then Jay asked, is there a FEMA firm, capital FIRM map layer or levies map layer from the Corps? And I'm just jumping to an assumption that he's referring to the Corps of the Army Corps of Engineers.
Hmm. Right now we don't have that represented on the map. I forget who mentioned that, but we had talked about levies at one point. I think we tried to reach out to a Metro East organization. Jeff, I don't know if you remember the name of that organization, but we'd definitely be open to adding that to the map if that data is available, or we could work with you to get that data into a format that we could map. But yeah, we think that's obviously an important asset that we have given the rivers here.
I'm trying to remember if it was the Metro East sewer or sanitary district.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
They had mentioned levies as well. It's something we'll look into. And then you can see Jay's comment in the chat. See, USACE has a levies layer and heaps of data. Okay, great.
Yeah,
We'll
I'll
take a
put
look.
this on.
Any other questions? Those were the two that I saw that were submitted.
So I see we have a question, is the NGA driving the development of the Greenway and North-South Transit Project? I'm not sure exactly, but it's definitely a big factor in terms of locating both of those transit lines. The Jefferson alignment, I'm pretty sure the incentive to put it there is because of NGA and the soccer stadium. So it goes kind of right along that area. And then the Greenway overall is just looking to better connect within the core of St. Louis. So I'm guessing that will be to provide more connectivity there. We might have someone from the Greenway on here.
I think we do. Michelle, are you still on? Or I forget
Yes.
if folks can speak or not. How we have this set up as a webinar.
Yeah, I think. But the chat is okay.
Okay, she's raising her hand.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I would say the NGA is part of an important part of the greenways, but as Emily said, it really is being developed to provide connectivity within the city, and we have the connection of 4 major parks, which is sort of the cornerstone of those connections. But we are working with lots of partners to increase not only the transportation aspect of greenways, but the outdoor recreation, just getting people together and connectivity and economic development. Lots of pieces of it. Does that, hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay, for that link.
And once again, I mean, so many folks on the call, Great Rivers Greenway, Bi-State, and many others, I believe, on the call were just really instrumental in the project, a really collaborative effort. So thanks to everyone, and we'll be in touch soon on how to maintain and update it going forward. Looks like there aren't any more questions coming in. We can definitely wrap this early. Give everybody 15 minutes back. Anything else, Emily, from your perspective?
I think just stay tuned for updates. We are hoping to kick off our sort of more robust updates and additions to the map starting in January. And those updates will be announced through the GSL newsletter. So if you aren't already signed up, feel free to sign up for that. Just stay up to date.
Thanks everybody for joining.